So, are you an anxious, preoccupied person in relationships who feels like you can't seem to get somebody to really commit and invest in you? Well, if that sounds like you and you really don't understand why, you're not alone. In fact, very commonly, I see a lot of anxious, preoccupied individuals going through their relationship life where it's like they have everything that you could want in a partner. They're kind, they're supportive, they're charismatic, they're sweet, they have their life together, and they tend to be really ready and available to invest in relationships. But there's a mindset that usually ends up actually causing people to want to pull away and to want to leave relationships very early. In fact, often before they can really pick up steam. So, if this sounds like you, we're going to cover in this video A, why that happens, and B, the number one mindset that's super important to make you more desirable as an anxious, preoccupied partner. So, first and foremost, if you're not familiar with what an anxious preoccupied person is or attachment style, it's one of four major attachment styles or love styles. Every single person has an attachment style, and the anxious preoccupied attachment style is the one that tends to be a little bit more anxious, needy in relationships, clingy at times, and they tend to really value relationships, whether it's social relationships, romantic relationships, community based relationships, family. And they most often end up being the ones broken up with early on, especially in that early dating stage. So, why this happens is because, first and foremost, anxious preoccupieds tend to actually choose emotionally unavailable people. And they tend to be really tuned in to who those emotionally unavailable people will be. And then what happens along with that, and you can think of these things as going hand in hand with each other, is anxious, preoccupied individuals also try to push a relationship along quite quickly because they really value and care about their need for certainty and commitment. And relationships as a whole are super important to them. So they'll meet somebody, and if they hit it off, they tend to get impatient. They tend to push for things to happen and sort of achieve that desired outcome of commitment or certainty early on. And then what ends up happening as a result of this is it can cause the person who they're connecting to, who's more emotionally unavailable, whether it be a fearful avoidant attachment style or dismissive avoidant attachment style, which they tend to really bring in the vast majority of the time. It can tend to cause those individuals to feel like they really get cold feet. Their attachment wounds are triggered, their fears are triggered. And so you can see why this relationship is likely to unfold in not so great of a way for an anxious preoccupied. But here's the kicker. Have you ever noticed that the people who get chased after most in relationships are also the people who are not people pleasing their partner or the other person? And it's because there's actually a reason for this. And it's that the number one mindset that makes you much more desirable to somebody early on is self consideration. It's the principle of you being able to consider yourself. So I'm not talking about like trying to intentionally not people please or be disagreeable with somebody. I'm not talking about that because that's where we really enter into the territory of like games. And I don't believe in playing games. I believe in having open, honest conversation and having healthy dynamics in the relationship to ourselves. And when we can really heal and move into a secure space in the relationship to ourselves, that actually benefits the way we attract people in relationships and whether or not people want to commit to us in relationships and vice versa. So, self consideration, what do I mean by this? Well, it's the opposite of people pleasing, but in a healthy way. It's not disagreeableness versus people pleasing. It's the ability to consider yourself, your needs, your truth, and to show up authentically in relationships. And this leads to you having better boundaries. A huge part of high self esteem is high self consideration and high self compassion. So it makes you seem much more confident. It also allows you to say your true yeses and nos. And you don't find yourself people pleasing, then getting resentful and then becoming critical later on, and then pushing somebody away in a relationship. And high self consideration also allows you to vet people very carefully early on in relationships. And what I mean by vetting is to actually see, like, is this person meeting my needs? Is this person doing the things that are important to me in a relationship? Do I know what my standards are in a relationship? Do I know my non-negotiables? Am I clear enough about these things and considering these things when I'm dating somebody and progressing a relationship with them to advocate for myself, to say if there's a need not being met, to let the person know, hey, this need isn't being met and it's important to me. And what ends up happening is people realize through high self consideration and open communication about this that they cannot take you for granted. And so they end up being aware of what your needs are. They end up pouring into the relationship much more often. And they end up seeing that high self esteem through that high self consideration component. And that is something that is often very, very attractive to other people. So it's really important to do this. Now, what is the number one reason APs or anxious preoccupied attachment styles struggle with this? Well, the number one reason is that anxious, preoccupied individuals tend to be ruled by their fears. They tend to have these huge fears of being abandoned, being a burden, ending up alone, being disliked or rejected or excluded. And these are the big anxious, preoccupied core wounds in relationships. And so what ends up happening is it's hard for them to consider themselves and advocate for themselves while in the presence of dating other people because they think if I advocate for myself or I share what I need or I speak my truth, I tell somebody no, then I'm going to end up being a burden or I'm going to end up being abandoned or disliked or rejected or not good enough or all these big subconscious fears that really rule this attachment style. So if you find yourself being like, you know what? I don't set boundaries very well. I don't share my authentic truth. I don't advocate for my needs in a relationship very well. If you hear that and that sounds like you, it's really important to recognize that you're probably living your relationship life from a place of fear instead of truth. You're probably prioritizing trying to avoid the fear of being abandoned or being a burden or not good enough or all these things that I just described. And that's actually stopping you from living in your truth in relationships, which means you're sabotaging relationships whether or not you realize it. Now, if you want to do a much deeper dive into how to actually recondition these fears, because you're not born with them, they get conditioned into your subconscious mind over time. And by the same principles, you can recondition these fears at a subconscious level. So, if you want tools to do that and do a deep dive into that, you can actually check out our Anxious Preoccupied reprogramming course for free for 14 days. For the month of May, Mental Health Month, we're actually giving 14-day free trial access to our entire platform, our whole school, which means you can come in, you can join webinars. We have webinars every single day with myself or other trained facilitators and coaches inside of our platform to answer your personal questions, to support you. You can come in there on camera, off camera, whatever's easiest for you. And you can actually jump in there and ask questions, but you can also grab that 14-day free trial access pass down below to the Anxious Preoccupied Reprogramming course, which will actually help you recondition these fears so you can get more into alignment with your truth, what your needs are, support them, back them, feel fearless to advocate for yourself, which guess what? Will make you so much more attractive and desirable to somebody you are potentially dating. So, if you want to do a deeper dive, check that out. And try to think about it for a second. I want you to consider this. I know it feels scary, but think of the people who get chased the most. They're not the people that are people pleasing everybody else. They're the people that are sitting in their truth, advocating for themselves, truly sharing and authentically sharing their own needs and what their standards are and backing that. Right. And think of the people you know and think of the dynamics you've seen. That's how it works. So it's really powerful to keep that in mind and to recognize how important that mindset is for healthy dating and relationships. So if you don't want to miss any daily videos, I put daily videos out here every single day, 7 days a week. Please subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any if you want to be a part of this community. And again, you can check out the whole PDS platform for exclusive access for 14 days for free using the link down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.